Okay. Part 2. And some of you were with us for part 1. But in case you weren't with us for part 1, we have a little mini review of part 1. And it was the most profound part of part 1. Here we see a nice painting. There's Lord Brahma flying off on his swan carrier. And down there on the right side, that's the cave where he placed the calves and the cowherd boys. So this is from Canto 10, Chapter 13, text number 15. We didn't get too far yesterday, but that's as far as we got. So Brahma wanted to take away Krishna's associates, but instead he took away some other boys and calves. But who were those other boys and calves? Just as Ravana wanted to take away Sita, but that was impossible. Instead, he took away Maya Sita, right? Right? Maya Sita. Similarly, Brahma took away, according to the Prabhupada's purport, Maya, Arbaka, or Maya boys. False, not really the coward boys. He took a pretense or a manifestation, a Maya manifestation of the coward boys. Brahma could show some extraordinary opulence to the Maya Baka, Mayar Baka, by putting them to sleep. So the text that this is the purport of, Brahma put the boys to sleep, because Brahma has powers. I mean, he has the powers to build the universe. He can. Would it be? I think it'd be helpful if the lights on the ceiling went out, then you could see the screen better. There. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Very good. Much better. Okay. We're going to hear that yesterday we heard a lot, the day before also, that the position of Krishna's Yogamaya. By Krishna's Yogamaya potency, his pastimes are enacted. And the pastimes are enacted for the purpose of exchanging loving dealings with his devotees. One of the main purposes, loving dealings, rasa. And so he's going to have this exchange of rasa with Lord Brahma, because Brahma is very powerful, and he's the previous part 1. Brahma saw the whole Leela of Krishna not only killing but liberating Aghasura. He saw it because the soul of Aghasura went into the sky, entered the body of Krishna, and he saw it. Normally one doesn't see souls, but Krishna permitted for the purpose of Leela, and he saw. Just like Shishupal, everyone in the assembly saw the soul of Shishupal merge into Krishna's body. Normally that's not something people see, but Krishna reigns for his purposes. So Brahma saw this, and he was thinking, wow, he's the giver of liberation. I would like, so on the one hand, he wanted to test his powers against Krishna's powers. Technology. Too much. He wanted to test his powers against Krishna's powers, and obviously Krishna had greater powers. It's also in the commentary of our acharyas, he wanted to see a different Leela. In addition to the Leela of liberating Aghasura, he wanted to see Krishna display of Krishna's different powers. So this pastime was enacted for him to see, and Krishna showed. But before Krishna's showing, he did some very interesting things. So, for one, by his Leela Shakti, Krishna had Leela Shakti, had Yogamaya conceal the actual cowherd boys and manifest look-alike cowherd boys. And those look-alike cowherd boys that were not Krishna's internal potency, he was able to put them to sleep. The Maya cowherd boys he could put them to sleep. That's what this commentary is saying. But he could not show any extraordinary potency to Krishna's associates, except Krishna's associates were in the care of Yogamaya. And then here's some further, this is verse 15. So that yesterday evening, with our Zoom call with the Chinese devotees, one devotee asked this question: where did those, if Maya cowherd boys were taken by Brahma, where did the real cowherd boys go? That's a good question. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes in his commentary to this verse, Yogamaya hid them, and Mahamaya, after the real cowherd boys were hidden, just concealed from sight, that's hidden. Then instantly, replication, Maya cowherd boys, and those are the cowherd boys that Brahma took. On the same verse, Jiva Goswami makes the following comment. Though the kidnapped boys had qualities similar to the Lord's own cowherd boys, they were Mayar Baka versions, and thus they could be overcome by Brahma's Maya. He put them to sleep. They couldn't do that with the cowherd boys. As part of the Lord's pastime, so without this, Krishna's human pastimes would not be complete. That is, matching Krishna's powers against Brahma's powers. Brahma can have some jurisdiction over material energy, but Brahma has no jurisdiction over the spiritual energy. And that's part of Krishna's pastime. So even the cowherd boys were manifest by Krishna's external potency, and Brahma could have some influence over them. Part of the Leela is Brahma has no influence over Krishna's spiritual potency. That's Jiva Goswami's comment. And then another question came. This is our translator from yesterday evening was commenting, we don't know, Vishwanath doesn't say where Yogamaya took the cowherd boys. But they were with him, that's all. The same as Sita was with Agni. We don't know where exactly he took her, but he took her, she was with him, that's all. And for 1 year, this is one of the outstanding features of this pastime. There's 3 sets of identical cowherd boys. 1, the expansions in the cave. 2, Yogamaya concealed the actual cowherd boys. 3, shortly Krishna is going to manifest. Identical features, identical, we hear the details, identical in all respects. But they're not the original. But look alike, identical looking, 3 sets. And later in the next chapter, chapter 14 comes after chapter 13, towards the end of the chapter, the original cowherd boys were different from the cowherd boy expansions who performed pastime for 1 year with Krishna, were returned by Yogamaya to the exact place where he had been having lunch with Krishna 1 year prior. By the influence of Yogamaya, their sense, that's the cowherd boys, that had been taken by Yogamaya for 1 year, their sense of passage of time is only one moment, not 1 year, with no memory of having spent 1 full year apart from Krishna. No, their bodies grow, because boys that are 4 years, 4 months, they grow in 1 year. So, but their bodies grew, but they didn't notice it. They didn't notice it. Their mothers didn't. So it was just, part of the pastime. Part of the pastime. And then when the cowherd boys came back to being with their mothers instead of being with Krishna's expansion, looking like their sons, their affection for the sons became normal again, because for that 1 year, their affection for the sons was tantamount to their affection for Krishna, which surpassed even the affection of a mother for her own son, which is remarkable. I mean, it doesn't happen. Mothers may have affection for another son, that's okay, but they have special affection for their son, that's natural. It's quite an amazing pastime, little package, one little chapter. So now, Brahma has put the cowherd boys, the Maya cowherd boys in the cave, and Krishna is going to expand. The verse goes on. Thereafter, just to create pleasure, both for Brahma and for the mothers of the calves and cowherd boys, the mothers of the calves mean the cows, and the cowherd boys, Krishna, the creator of this entire cosmic manifestation, expanded himself as calves and boys. And identical features. Identical. So identical. The mothers didn't recognize, this isn't my son. That's not going to happen. But it happened. Reason beyond reasons. Here's commentary explaining what were the reasons that Krishna did this Leela. In order to show his power of illusion to all people, even up to Balaram, in order to fulfill the desires of the Gopas and Gopis, that's the mothers and fathers, to have Krishna as their own son, in order to bewilder Brahma and throw him into the ocean of dismay, because he's smart, so he need a little shake-up. In order to show him thousands of forms of Vasudeva, the object of Brahma's devotion, having taught him the Bhagavatam, Krishna took the form of all the calves and boys. This is our Vishwanath Chakravarti, Thakur commentator. He's really special. He goes on, to give bliss to Brahma and the mothers, he expanded himself into both the calves and boys. He could do this because he is the master of the Mahatattva, which creates the universe. So he can create the universe, but he can also create forms, spiritual forms, looking like a material form. He has all Sarva Shaktis. He has all spiritual potencies. Here's the next verse. By his Vasudeva feature, Krishna simultaneously expanded himself into the exact number of missing cowherd boys and calves with their exact bodily features, their particular types of hands, legs, and other limbs, their sticks, bugles, and flutes, the lunch bags, their particular types of dress and ornaments placed in various ways, their names, ages, and forms, and their special activities and characteristics. By expanding himself in this way, beautiful Krishna proved the statement, Jagat Vishnu Mayam Samagra Jagat Vishnu Mayam. No, it's not, I went back and checked, it's not Vishnu Maya, it's Vishnu Mayam. Vishnu Mayam, Vishnu is all pervading. And the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is exactly this. We all know the Sanskrit phrase, the Chinta Veda Abheda Tattva, the Tattva, the truth of simultaneously one and different, inconceivably. So there's Krishna with cowherd boys. He can expand himself in more forms than one can imagine, yet he does not fall down from his original form as Krishna. Therefore, he is called Achyuta. He can't be fallen or can't be divided, or he's unlimited. This is Prabhupada's purport. Krishna thus proved that he is everything, that he can become everything, but that still he is personally different from everything. In the Upanishads, there are these statements that are perplexing. He walks and he does not walk. He is far away and he's near as well. He's inside everything and he's outside of everything. Krishna makes statements, some of those statements in Bhagavad Gita, but how to understand them? Because he's not material. We can be in this room or we can be out of this room, but we can't be in this room and out of the room at the same time. But Krishna can. He can be in everything and outside of everything at the same time, simultaneously, both. For him, no problem. No problem at all. Because he has this capacity, his capacity is without limit. And so Om Purnamada Purnamidam, you know the verse? Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnam Adaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. He's not diminished as each expansion is Purnam, he's not diminished. Prabhupada's classic example. Piece of paper, rip it into pieces, throw it into the middle of the room. The original paper is gone, little pieces are scattered around the room. So the original paper is no longer intact. Little pieces are scattered around the room. But Krishna can expand himself not only to little pieces, but complete forms of himself, and the original Krishna is not diminished. It's not material. So he is not material. And the potencies by which he expands himself are not material. So as he can expand himself, he can expand as cowherd boys, and he can expand Radharani, can expand his gopis of herself, and there's no limit. No limit. How to understand this mystical potency in Krishna? This is Srila Prabhupada's purport. Therefore, one must learn about Krishna from the Acharyas. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Vedic aphorism. One who follows the path of the Acharyas knows things as they are. Purusho Veda. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. Such a person can know Krishna as he is, at least to some extent. And as soon as one understands Krishna, one is liberated from material bondage, quoting Bhagavad Gita, Janma Karma Chame Divyam, etc. So that's what Bhagavad Gita teaches, and similarly the Bhagavatam is teaching and giving Puranic example or historical example to help us understand what's going on. So we're back to the cowherd boys. They appeared like normal boys, the ones that Krishna expanded. They appeared like normal boys. though they were the greatest, filled with eternity, knowledge, and bliss. These are expansions of the cowherd boys that replaced the ones that Yogamaya had hidden, the original ones that Yogamaya had hidden, and the ones that were the Maya cowherd boys that were in the cave. So Krishna expanded his own version. They had bodies greater than that of the inferior Brahma. All the limbs, including head, hair, nails, odor, voice, and complexion, were similar. Sanatana Goswami. Their ornaments and internal qualities, like peacefulness, talkativeness, skillfulness, were also similar. The word similar is the English translation of what he wrote. Similar means non-different, but they're different. So rather than saying non-different in the absolute sense, they're similar. They look just like. Their qualities like compassion and their names or words or accents were similar. Krishna could detect, no one else could detect. The expanded boy's memory of the boy's previous interactions with their parents were the same. Krishna's expansions remembered everything, as needed, of course, about what they did with their parents previously. One could not distinguish in any detail between the spiritual bodies he made and the original boys, because the boys were always his eternal devotees with spiritual bodies. It's a nice way to understand the science of Krishna Tattva. You can imagine, close your eyes and imagine Jiva Goswami explaining all this in his Sandarbhas. So there's Bhagavad Sandarbha, he's explaining the position of Bhagavan. And explaining the position of Bhagavan, he has to explain the expansions of Bhagavan, because it's what Bhagavan does. He expands himself, and expands himself in different ways. So this pastime is an important pastime for Jiva Goswami in his Sandarbhas to explain. And then Bhakti Sandarbha, the exchange of rasa, devotional taste and mellow. It's going on between Krishna and his expansions and Krishna and Lord Brahma. Because there's exchange of loving feelings. All of them were actually Krishna himself. These forms were forms of the Lord. Again, not Vishnu Maya, but Vishnu Mayam, having the essential nature of. This is not the Maya, as in energy, it's Vishnu Mayam, having essential nature of Vishnu. Vishnu indicates the nature of spreading everywhere. All these are commentaries by Sanatana Goswami. By being all these separate forms, Krishna was both different from and non-different from them. This is a super fantastic example to illustrate the Chinta Bheda Veda Tattva philosophy. So how to understand this? Srimad Bhagavatam is not largely commented upon by other Sampradaya Acharyas. Say it this way. The followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so Madhvacharya to some degree made comments on Bhagavatam. The other three Sampradayas made no comments on the Bhagavatam. They had comments on many things, but not on the Bhagavatam. And in Lord Chaitanya, prior to him, Sridhar Swami gave, and then with him, many commentators. More commentators over a period of time on Srimad Bhagavatam than even Bhagavad Gita, and there's many Bhagavad Gita commentaries because it's one of the essential texts that even Shankaracharya commented upon, etc., etc., etc. It was a standard way of understanding, a lens through which you can understand properly the Upanishads and Vedanta Sutra, those primary texts. So, Bhagavatam commentary was less until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates came, and then many, many, many commentaries, especially the emphasis upon rasa, because that's what is disclosed clearly in the Bhagavatam, and then made even more clear by our commentators, starting with Rupa Goswami, using the Bhagavatam to explain rasa, and then expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding and further expanding. Several generations later came Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he explains the rasa feature so nicely. Now, expanding himself so as to appear as all the calves and cowherd boys, all of them as they were, and at the same time appear as their leader, Krishna entered Brajabhumi, just as he usually did, while enjoying their company. So they finished their lunch, and he's entering into Vrindavan town. Krishna then entered in different cowsheds as the calves, and different homes as different boys. So he's reciprocating rasa, or loving exchange, with the parents and their other children, and with the cows and the oxen, the bulls, to reciprocate the reason for his one of the reasons for his making this pastime for 1 full year. So the mothers of the cowherd boys, they're meeting their sons at the end of the day, like they would do every day. The mothers of the boys, upon hearing the sounds of the flutes and bugles being played by their sons, immediately rose from their household tasks, lifted their boys upon their laps, embraced them with both arms, and began to feed them with their breast milk, which flowed forth because of extreme love, specifically for Krishna. Interesting. The mothers took care of the boys by massaging them with oil, bathing them, smearing their bodies with sandalwood pulp, decorating them with ornaments, chanting protective mantras, decorating their bodies with tilak, and giving them food. Nice painting. This is Krishna coming back, when the cowherd boys coming back, and the adults receiving all of them. In this way, the mothers served Krishna personally. Actually, Krishna is everything, but at the same time expressing extreme love and affection, they took special pleasure in feeding Krishna, the Parabrahman, and Krishna drank the milk from his respective mothers, as if it were a nectarian beverage. Very beautiful painting of Krishna. The motherly affection of the mothers and cows for Krishna remained as before, but the love for him had been greater than the love for their own children and calves. But now, when Krishna became their sons and calves, their love for their sons and calves became equal to that for Krishna. And they were astonished, and they were very happy. All the cows entered their different sheds and began mooing loudly, calling for the respective calves. When the calves arrived, the mothers began licking the calves' bodies again and again, and profusely feeding them with the milk flowing from their milk bags. Very intimate pastime When while pasturing atop Govardhan Hill, the cows looked down to find some green grass and saw their calves. That was it. They went running. They forgot themselves and ran towards their calves with great anxiety, each running as if with one pair of legs. Cows running. It's awkward. The cows had given birth to new calves, but because of increased affection for the older calves, they allowed the older calves to drink milk first. For 1 year, their affection for their own sons continuously increased, for Krishna had now become their sons. In this way, Krishna continued his pastimes for the whole year. And then there's this nice scene. You've seen this painting before. You saw it yesterday a couple of times. There's Govardhan Hill on the right side, and there's the cows scurrying down the hill of Govardhan because they saw their calves at the bottom. The cowherd men started chasing with their sticks, unable to check the cows from going to their calves. They felt simultaneously ashamed and angry. But when they came down and saw their own sons, they were overwhelmed by great affection. They forgot their cowherding and they went to embrace their sons. Experiencing great attraction, their anger completely disappeared. There's a close-up painting of the same scene. Since the cowherds were elderly, it was not possible for them to become bewildered in intelligence by a short separation from their sons. However, it happened at this time. They constantly remembered their sons after ceasing the embraces, so they're Vishnu Smaranam. But they're thinking of their sons, but they're thinking of Krishna because Krishna is their sons. They're absorbed in Krishna consciousness, in parental affection. Very clever. One day, 5 or 6 nights before the completion of the year, Krishna, tending the calves, entered the forest along with Balaram. And this is Jiva Goswami's commentary, an indefinite 5 or 6 days is mentioned because Shukadeva Goswami was bewildered by prema. Couldn't say exactly how many days before the pastime ended. When Baladev saw this attachment, he was unable to understand the reason for it. He became bewildered, the omniscient Balaram. What is this wonderful phenomenon? The affection for all the inhabitants of Braja, including me, is increasing as never before. Who is this mystic power? And where does he come from? Is she a demigod or a demoness? Is it the illusory energy of Lord Krishna? For who else can bewilder me? So the yoga Maya curtain is starting to pull back, and he's now, just before the pastime is ending, he's getting an inkling of what's been going on for the past year. Thinking in this way, Lord Balaram was able to see with the eye of transcendental knowledge that all these calves and Krishna's friends were expansions of Sri Krishna. By Yoga Maya's influence, Balaram realized this, and the other cowherd men even now did not realize this. So he's given some privileges because he's Balaram. Krishna didn't reveal this to Balaram till now because he did not want Balaram to suffer any separation from the boys. for 1 year, like the ones that were actually the cowherd boys, so as to protect his feelings of separation from the cowherd boys. He didn't reveal it. He was with the cowherd boys. Now, by Krishna's will, Yogamaya gradually withdrew her covering from Balaram. Lord Baladev requested Krishna, "These boys are not devatas or sages, O Lord. Now I can see that you, although one, manifested into many calves and boys. Please explain this to me." Hearing this, Krishna explained everything to Balaram. Nice painting. And now we're going to go back to Lord Brahma. After describing the bewilderment of the cowherd men and women, Shukadeva Goswami is now going to narrate the bewilderment of Lord Brahma. The spotlight focuses and shifts to Lord Brahma. When Lord Brahma returned after a moment of his time, which is a complete year according to human measurement, according to his own measurement, one moment of his time, Lord Krishna was engaged, just as before, playing with the boys and calves, who were his expansions. So this is the third set. It's clear, right?
Yes.
Got it, okay. However, Balaram was not there. Later, Krishna told him the secret, but he did not bring Balaram to carry out this pastime. So, for a whole year, this is going on. Baladev, however, as on the previous year, was kept home by his mother to perform auspicious rites on his birthday. And that's Vishwama. Why Balaram wasn't there was a good excuse. So they're back together, and Brahma is going to be shown something. Brahma is considering, maybe I took those calves and cowherd boys away, but now they have been taken back from that cave. Is this what happened? He put them to sleep because they were Maya cowherd boys. He can do that. And 3 commentators say, where have all these boys and calves that I see come from? Ones surrounding Krishna. Are these the ones bewildered by my Maya? Brahma tried to figure out the 2 groups, one sleeping and one playing. Which of them was the real group of the original boys and calves, and which was the false group? And neither were the real group. Thus, because Brahma wanted to mystify the all-pervading Lord Krishna, but can never be mystified, but who, on the contrary, mystifies the entire universe. He himself, Brahma, was put into bewilderment. Prabhupada makes a comment that the consciousness or the mystic power of Lord Brahma was like the power of a glowworm versus the power of the sunlight. Was the power of the glowworm derives its power from the sunlight, but it's tiny, tiny in comparison to the power of the sun. So he's comparing and got quite a show. While Lord Brahma looked on, so he's looking at the cowherd boys that are surrounding Krishna, all the calves and the boys tending them immediately appeared to have complexions the color of bluish rain clouds and to be dressed in yellow silken garments. So you see, in the way the artists have illustrated it, the way the description goes further, there's the cowherd boys, and simultaneously the cowherd boy is there, manifest by Krishna, but then forms of Vishnu or Narayana are simultaneously manifest for each one of the calves and each one of the cowherd boys. So there's a lot of Lord Vishnu forms. The beauty and qualities of the Vishnu Murtis are described in a number of verses. See how many verses are describing these Vishnu forms. Bangles on their ankles, ornaments on their feet, sacred belts around their waist, garlands of forest flowers and Kaustubha gem around their necks, marked with 3 lines of conch shell. The emblem of the goddess of fortune on the right upper portion of their chests. 4 arms holding the conch shell disc mason and lotus flower. Armlets on their arms, bracelets on their wrists, earrings on their ears, helmets on their heads. That's the forms of Vishnu. Fresh, tender garlands of tulsi leaves offered by the sadhakas to deities using their minds in action. The brightness of their smiles made the moon light lament. They looked forward with pink eyes, which fulfilled the desires of their devotees, worthy of his mercy. His affection, which maintains the devotees, is in Shuddha Sattva, or transcendence. So they, the Vishnu forms, are glancing upon their devotees. And the devotees are seeing these forms and embracing them in their eyes, and he's smiling so that they feel fully satisfied. And there's a lot of discussion about his eyes. As all those Vishnu Murtis are surrounded by all the opulences and by the 24 elements for the creation of the material world, headed by the Mahatattva. In other words, they have all these different Vishnu forms, and their descriptions are presented, and simultaneously the additional opulences, mystic siddhis, the 24 elements, all personified. They were being worshipped by various living entities according to their capacities, with various means of worship, such as dancing and singing. So it's quite a scene. They're all these different energies of the Lord are personified, and they're offering various prayers, each one of the forms of the Lord. So it's a big concert of sound vibration. Then Lord Brahma saw that Kala, which is an energy but also has a form, Bhava, one's own nature by association, Samskara, again with form, Kama, Karma, and Gunas, all worshipping the Vishnu Murtis. And Brahma he's one of the energies, he's one of the entities created by the Supreme Lord, that he's seeing this major display. Brahma saw the Supreme Brahman. At the same time, he saw all the calves and boys as the Lord's expansions. When Lord Brahma, his 11 senses jolted by astonishment and stunned by transcendental bliss, he became silent. Needless to say. Astonishment. Because he's not just a fellow, he's super intelligent. Super intelligent. And he understands what's being done. He had a desire, and Krishna is fulfilling that desire. He wanted to see a pastime even greater and more profound than the deliverance and liberation of Aghasura. So now he's got it. Lord Krishna, understanding Brahma's position then, at once removed the curtain of his Yogamaya. Lord Brahma's external consciousness then revived, and he stood up, just like a dead man coming back to life. opening his eyes with great difficulty, he saw the universe. Got a darshan of the universal form. After all of that. So he's probably short-circuited. Exalted personality. It's similar to what Mother Yashoda saw within Krishna's mouth, but now he's not in Krishna's mouth, it's just before his eyes. The whole universe that he has created, along with himself, who is the creator. Then, looking in all directions, Brahma immediately saw Vrindavan, filled with trees, which were the means of livelihood for the inhabitants, and which were equally pleasing in all seasons. Very nice painting. Vrindavan is the transcendental abode of the Lord, where there is no hunger, anger, or thirst. Though naturally inimical, both human beings and fierce animals live there together in transcendental friendship. So there's Brahma offering obeisances. Who can imagine? After seeing all this, Brahma hastily got down from his swan carrier, fell down like a golden rod, and touched the lotus feet of Lord Krishna with the tips of the 4 crowns on his heads, because he has 4 heads. Offering his obeisances, he bathed the feet of Krishna with the water of tears of joy. So this is the preamble for chapter 14, which is his prayers. Rising and falling again and again at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna for a long time, Lord Brahma remembered over and over the Lord's greatness he had just seen. There's this classic painting of, on the left side is Brahma in his pose of offering prayers. On the right side, Krishna holding the branch of a tree in his right hand, and his lump of fruit and yogurt in his left hand, because he eats with his right hand, so he's holding the fruit in his left hand. Then, rising very gradually, wiping his eyes, his head bent low, his mind concentrated and his body trembling, Lord Brahma very humbly began with faltering words to offer praises to Lord Krishna. We're closing in on the end of chapter 13. Here's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's comments. If one intensely absorbs his mind in various arguments, opinions, and their respective literatures, then all realizations attained through samadhi are practically lost. This is called illusion, based on the flowery words of the Vedas. You know that verse from Bhagavad Gita. Being overwhelmed with this illusion, Brahma had doubted the supremacy of Krishna. The Vaishnava should regard this illusion as an obstacle. His Krishna Samhita text has written all of this. In Krishna Samhita and one other book, Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes about Krishna's childhood pastimes, and each of the pastimes has some significance. Particularly the killing of demons has some significance. Krishna's helping his sadhaka overcome obstacles on their path. But sometimes Krishna doesn't kill the demons, like happened with Aghasura, and why he doesn't kill Aghasura and all those kinds of things. And here he's not killing Brahma, but there's a lesson. The lesson of being absorbed in abstract, elevated consciousness without necessarily the fullness of devotion. So Brahma is this great devotee you shouldn't mistake. And he's super intelligent, we shouldn't mistake. But there's something within him that Krishna was addressing through this pastime that elevated him to a very special place. And we're going to hear that place in the next chapter, chapter 14. Brahma Vimoha Lila, and the prayers of Brahma the next. Fascinating? Fascinating. Now, without the help of our acharyas, the storyline is very attractive, but the meaning of it is not so clear. But with the help of our acharyas, it becomes more clear. And by meditating on these nice descriptions of our acharyas, it becomes gradually, at least potentially, more and more clear. He is reciprocating loving dealings with each according to their nature. And capacity. And Brahma has great capacity. Lord Krishna, the Lord Vishnu decided to give the teachings of the Vedas fully to Lord Brahma, who then passed them on, etc., with his disciplic succession. So he's a most exalted person. And yet, not on the same platform as the residents of Vrindavan, because we mentioned this yesterday. The residents of Vrindavan were watching from their airplanes in the sky and showering flowers and remarking, oh, ah. But the cowherd boys were participating with Krishna directly. So who's more fortunate or who's more elevated? The demigods, not just residents of heaven, but the demigods, the leaders of the residents of heaven, or the cowherd boys, simple village people. Very special. Very special. And get our opportunity here, with the assistance of our acharyas, we're somehow unqualified being made to be qualified. So let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah. Oh.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Well, I find this is quite playful pastime.
Yeah.
It's remind me of Vedanta Sutra verse which Srila Prabhupada often quote. Is that the absolute truth is Ananda Maya Vyasa, is filled with joy. Ananda Maya. And for just to recall what we covered yesterday, the emphasis, the depiction yesterday is more about the exchange between Krishna and his cowherd boys.
Yes.
Very detailed description, how they play, how they tease each other, and all those details. And today, Shukadeva Goswami kind of switched his spotlight and gives more detailed description on the exchanges between the cowherd boys and their parents, their fathers, and their mothers, and the exchange between the calves and the cows. But I think that the real purpose is to describe the exchange between Krishna and his devotees, because Krishna are those calves and cows. And I also see that different people, it's really demonstrated different people see Krishna in their own unique way, depending on their relationship with them. And for example, the residents of Vrindavan see Krishna as their calves, as their sons. But when we later on see how Brahma, his vision, he didn't see Krishna as cowherd boys or calves. He see Krishna as Vishnu, the opulent Lord of Vaikuntha. and that is his mood, his level of his relationship with Krishna. Uh, and yeah, and then the question I'm thinking about is we see that the there is an increased sense of joy and affection between the cowherd man, cowherd woman, and cows between their calves and boys, because those are Krishna. But how I'm just thinking, how does that also apply to Krishna? Because he is playing with himself. Does he also experience an increased level of joy and affection in comparison with his playing with the previous original cowherd boy?
Well, yes, he's experiencing an increase of joy and affection, but the object with which or with whom he's engaging, it shifts from the boys to the parents, both the fathers and the mothers, and the cows. So focus shifts for Krishna's joy. They want, and he wants, and he makes an arrangement to fulfill their want and his want. So that the joy increases, but or diversifies. Yogamaya is facilitating him and them, and then it switches back. He's with the cowboys again. His pastimes are diverse. Your question was, is his joy increased? Yes. And even more specifically, the joy is diversified in all the rasas. And with each of the boys a little different, even each of the parents a little different. And so take the big picture, and it's a big festival. The Krishna's pastimes is a big festival of loving exchange, orchestrated by the Yogamaya potency, so that it can all play out. And his joy is increasing for sure. And diversifying. You have something further? No?
Just maybe clarify a little bit. I'm thinking in terms of Krishna's exchange with the original set of cowherd boys, and versus his exchange with the cowherd boys, which basically is his own expansion of his two.
But okay. In addition to the expansions exchanging with the parents, there's Krishna exchanging with the expansions. Well, no spotlight is cast on that. But one can assume, yes, what dimension do you have to go to describe or envision or realize what that exchange between Krishna and his expansions, cowherd boy expansions, was like? Who can say? Krishna exchanging with himself. My problem. Yeah, Srimati.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. At just 1 year of time period, it was all Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.
All what?
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Like cow, but
Yeah.
boys were Krishna, calves were Krishna. I was just thinking that this whole 1 week for was us, like rasa, rasa, rasa. Mellows, Govardhan Leela, we see the members of Krishna is enjoying all the 7 days and nights under the Govardhan with the Vrindavan Vasis. And in this pastime, so wonderfully explained. On the same lines of what Nandimukhi Mataji had said, I was thinking about the separation of Krishna with the original cowherd boys. They were eternal associates for him in Vrindavan always.
Yeah, a comment was made by one of our acharyas that Krishna didn't want Balaram to feel separation from the original covered boys, and so he didn't reveal. But Krishna knew because he expanded the replacement covered boys. So he was not obviously experiencing some separation. But because of Yogamaya, no, maybe he wasn't because of Yogamaya, because the covered boys weren't aware of separation. It was as if the next moment they're back again.
Krishna.
So it could have been, I don't recall hearing any description, but Krishna's experience was in his feelings of separation from the coward boys, the original coward boys for that 1 year. There's layers of mystery.
But it's so sweet that he's trying to have loving concern for Balaram, that Balaram should not feel that separation.
Yeah.
That's-
But so by his Yogamaya potency, Krishna could also be in a similar position. But Krishna knew that these weren't the coward boys. Krishna knew that coward boys had been taken by Yogamaya. It's a mystery. It's a nice mystery.
Maharaj, I was thinking about this rasa and mellow make so many things clear, which are like sometimes bewildering, which are sometimes not acceptable as a human brain, but it's making it so clear. I was just wondering about the devotees of Lord Narayana. They're happy in their positions of
Oh, yeah.
being- Yes. They're happy.
Invite them to something else and thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah. So their rasa or the relationship is just awe and reverence.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Well, they do service in that mood of awe and reverence. So in addition to awe and reverence, they do service in awe and reverence.
So they enjoy the rasa of servitude.
Yeah. Yes.
Maharaj, on the topic of pride,
Mm.
the past time what we have heard
Yes.
in Gita Nagari,
Yes.
Radharani's, Gopis' pride,
And so many others.
and Krishna disappears.
Yeah.
before them.
Indra's pride. Others. Okay.
So when Krishna disappears from them, Krishna knows that they are pure.
Yes.
So when he is away from them for that period,
He appears to be
Mm.
a pastime as if.
but for him no separation.
There's no separation because they're eternal associates. As if.
So the Leela was meant to just take out that tinge of pride.
But, well, let's be careful.
It's just
Transcendental pride, as we discussed, Garuda discussed at length, is different than the pride that we normally would think of what pride is. So it's subtle, very subtle, very subtle. So one has to be very careful. Were they experiencing pride? Yes. The verse says, but what kind of pride was that? And from whence did it come if they're pure? So it's an ecstasy induced by Krishna to facilitate Krishna's pastimes with them so that they could then experience,
Krishna's desire again.
yeah, again. But the so-called pride, but so-called pride, not pride as we know, but pride. He covered it very nicely. And it's probably a good idea for most of us to go over those recordings again, because to capture the dialogue and the discussion and the illumination and all of that probably would take a few times to go through it to make sure really meditate thoroughly on, because it's this very delicate, subtle topic. Behind you.
Maharaj, please forgive me if this is a really silly question.
You have a silly question.
Eternal associates of Krishna, like covered by his gopis and all, are they also Shakti Tattva? Are they also expansions of Krishna?
Okay. The manifestations of the gopis are manifestations of Radharani, not manifestations of Krishna. Indirectly, because everything comes from Krishna, they're manifestations of Krishna. But more specifically, the manifestation of Radharani, who is not different than and inseparable from Krishna. All the gopis are manifestations of her. There's a whole chapter, Adilila chapter 5, I think, we're discussing Radharani's expansions. So they're her expansions, not his. And the coward boys are Krishna's expansions. But, in a certain, different than the categories of the jiva, they're his own expansions. Anyway, so now back to rephrase your question. Are you satisfied?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
So that's the reason I got this question is like when Brahma spills the covered boys, then also Krishna expands himself into covered boys. So they are different from that expansion is different than the original covered by expansion of Krishna.
Yes. There's 3 sets. And of the 3 sets, 2 are in the spiritual, and the other third of the 3 of the third is not in the same category. And therefore Brahma could put them to sleep or engage his mystic powers over them. But not possible for the original cowherd boys, or to speak of Krishna's direct expansion, the Vishnumurti expansions. Okay?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So Krishna has taken care of Balaram being separated from original cowherd boy. How about the separation of original cowherd boys from Krishna?
Yogamaya. They didn't feel it because the passage of time was non-existent by Yogamaya's arrangement. They didn't feel it. That's what we... So what state of consciousness were they in for that 1 year when they weren't feeling anything? They weren't numb. There's not a description that I'm aware of what they were feeling, but they without passage of time. There is a description given by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Normally, yugayatam nimeshena chakrushka pravasayatam. Normally when there's separation, a moment feels like millennium. So the comment is, it was reverse. There was this long 1 year separation, but they weren't feeling it. They were feeling it like a moment. So what were they feeling? Which is kind of what you're asking. So it didn't describe, but they didn't see the passage of time, and therefore there's no separation. They didn't feel passage of time. There was no separation, even for a moment. The next moment they're sitting, Krishna's there with them. Some commentary says, "Oh Krishna, you can't stay away from us for a moment. Come and finish your lunch." Playful. They weren't feeling. Suspended animation, I guess, or something like that. Anything else? Yes? Go ahead.
Both both in case of Brahma and Indra, the problem was false pride, right? They doubted supremacy of Krishna.
Who? Then you're saying Lord Brahma had false pride?
Yeah, because he doubted the supremacy of Krishna.
Well,
Anartha
yes
in
and
China.
no. Yes and no. When the no is he was induced. So same like Arjuna was induced. Or was Arjuna? He was taking the position of, but did he really become opposed to? In his heart of hearts, did he become opposed to what Krishna wanted him to do? He took that. He was induced to take that position, so that Bhagavad Gita could be spoken. That we know with Arjuna. So that was the question I was asking. If you remember about the gopis, was it like that for the gopis? They were induced by the same thing that Arjuna was induced by for a pastime purpose, to illuminate us and have them experience what they experienced and so on. So the answer he gave was yes. So induced by Krishna, so it's not the normal kind of anything. It's induced by Krishna. So it's but what is the inducing factors? Yogamaya. And Yogamaya can manipulate the mind and consciousness and the display of activities and everything. Facilitating Krishna's pastimes and his loving exchange with his devotees. So same for your question. In principle, the application is diverse, but the same principle.
So in that case, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Brahma's fault and not.
We don't point fault with the gopis or Arjuna or Lord Brahma. No. What
They're not responsible. That's what.
Yeah. Lord Brahma, we don't. He has a finger shaken at him for what he did, but if he's induced to do that, and the higher sense of rasa, he's induced to do like that. So when induced by Krishna to do something, you're not to be faulted. There's no dosha on his part. He's doing what Krishna wanted him to do. So pastime could be enacted, and Krishna could show him. And so in the end, just like Krishna showed to Arjuna through knowledge and the universal form, etc., now I'm ready. And then the rest of the Leela. But there was a particular part of the Leela for edification of us and Arjuna. We need the edification Arjuna didn't. But so for our sake, that's how very clearly that's our understanding. It's simply for the gopis, for our sake. And their experiencing of what they experienced when Krishna disappeared. And the lesson of bhakti for one who may think in a way that leads in the direction of comparison, as he explained so nicely. So Brahma knows, in terms of planetary structure, that Brahmaloka is at the top. And in terms of his authority, he is at the top, above all the devas. So if he's, is that risky to think, I'm special? It's risky. So better not take risks. So what do we do? So for all of us, we can do nothing or do something, and we do something, and some recognition comes. Then what? What do we do with that recognition? What do we do with the intelligence, the ability, the strength? Bhakti is the protection against all of that. That's a very important lesson in the Bhagavatam. And this is one of the places where the lesson is learned. However big one may be, up to Lord Brahma, the first created being who built everything. And all living entities are descendants from him. want to speak about us, then they have something. And and it's sitting here in a room, it's easy to meditate on those thoughts and then leave the room and then become, think something else. But so the idea through hearing, sufficient hearing, as the two verses that we discussed in the morning class, then we're protected. We're protected by bhakti, by the ongoing sufficient and qualitative hearing. It's not just the story, it's the protection of the sound vibration of taking proper shelter through sound. It's powerful. That's our process. Anything else?
There's a question online.
That's okay.
Question from Amara Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Seeing ordinary appearance or activities of Krishna, even great demigods like Lord Brahma and Indra get bewildered. How an ordinary living entity can protect himself from such bewilderment, seeing seemingly worldly actions of Vaishnava?
Yeah, the answer is bhakti. Bhakti is the protector. And if bhakti is absent, then it's the waves of the material energy. That's it. If bhakti is weak, then sometimes it's quite calm, and sometimes it's wavy, sometimes it's stormy. So when bhakti is robust and mature, then there's protection. The protection is in bhakti. So to give bhakti is give protection to people, the opportunity where there's shelter. And then having been given bhakti, to grow it. And then how do we grow it? Then there's the process of how you grow or mature the seed of bhakti. And we're, all of us are at different levels of maturing in our bhakti lives. Okay? That's it. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai. His Holiness Srila Swami Guru Maharaj ki Jai.